They shake, they rattle, and occasionally roll. They're the most violent, unpredictable racing machines man has yet conceived. Funny cars, floppers, plastic fantastics, call them what you will, but they're 5-second, 260-mile-an-hour combat packs of grandstands like no other breed. The Mount St. Helens of the quarter mile. Their roots are the stock cars of the early 60s that sent many a loyal dragster fan to the hot dog stand. They said race cars don't have doors. Then something funny happened. The stock cars started doing wheel stands. Street cars didn't do that. Then a blower or two showed up on full-bodied steel cars, and they got even funnier. That's funny as in peculiar. Suddenly, the fans were cheering wildly for the Dodge, the Ford, the Chevy, whatever they owned. Product identity, some trackside psychologists said. Then came nitro, plastic bodies, tube frames, and a troupe of touring stars with colorful nicknames. They blazed the tires across the continent, leaving some legendary stories in their wake. When NHRA accepted them as a real racing class, the unfortunate name had stuck: Funny Cars.
A new and exciting class is known as funny cars. These are high-performance vehicles made to look like ordinary sedans. Inside, there's nothing ordinary about them. Special protective clothing is required in these lightweight powerhouses. These are vehicles of the space age. A sedan-like body is made of fiberglass and weighs only 150 pounds. The funny cars can race the quarter mile in less than 7.5 seconds. Top speed, 190 miles an hour.
It's the type of action the fans have come to see. And Funny Car Eliminator had them up and cheering their favorites. That's Speed King Mickey Thompson pouring the traction-improving bleach down for driver Danny Ungaius. The Mach 1 stages against the Camaro of schoolteacher Kelly Chadwick from Texas. An anxious moment for trackside photographers as Chadwick narrowly misses the rail before shutting off. Ungaius flashes through in 7.38 seconds. Chevy fans are backing Bruce Larson of Pennsylvania. He's drawn the quickest car of the meet, Don Schumacher's Barracuda from Illinois. Schumacher's engine expires while Larson charges to a great 735, 192-mile-per-hour wind, and the crowd loves it. Connie Kalita's Bounty Hunter Mustang now tangles with Californian Rich Cerunian, wheeling Big John Masmanian's Candy Apple Barracuda. Ford Cammer versus Plymouth Hemi. A tremendous hole shot by Michigan's Kalita, but the Barracuda is charging on the other end, and it's Big John moving to the semifinals by a headlight, 753, 199.
They're pretty good guys, but you know, when you get to a meet like this, you don't really have any friends.
These are the funny cars. In effect, they are short version AA fuel dragsters with plastic bodies, and Don Prudhomme is everywhere today. He owns this car. It'll be driven by Jay Howell, and here Don Parent's crew member, as he pours the solution down for Howell to burn in his tires, heat them up, and move into the starting line area. The funny car is capable of going over 200 miles an hour. It's very light. The bodies are made of plastic. Don Shoemaker has been one of the hot fellows all across the country, match racing and in the national competition as well throughout this year. Shoemaker's car is a Barracuda, and so is the car that Howell will be driving, a Barracuda. And Shoemaker has been very, very steady in all of the competition leading up to the funny car quarterfinals. Buster Couch is the starter. Watch him explode off that starting line. I mean, they leap out of there. Shoemaker at the top end pulls away to a comfortable win. 7.07 seconds elapsed time, better than 210 miles an hour for the winner, Shoemaker. So Don Prudhomme, himself a winner just moments ago, watches his Barracuda lose in the funny car quarterfinals.
This race will feature our defending champion car, the Hawaiian of Roland Leon from Honolulu, Hawaii, and the machine just now having its body latched down, Big John Mazmanian of Whittier, California, and his driver, Richard Sarunian, who is also his nephew. The Hawaiian being driven this year by young Butch Moss. Moss of Westminster, California. And you can bet just as soon as the snows melt in the east, this team will be headed out on their annual tour, appearing at drag strips all over the United States. That's how they make their living.
I can't compete with that burnout, Steve.
You know, the burnouts really have added an awful lot to the show, not only as well as helping the elapsed time. Generally, at most drag strips around the country, the funny cars will go up to the starting line and do burnouts from the starting line, sometimes almost a full quarter mile and back all the way back up again. Obviously, there's not time for that at a big meet here like the Winter Nationals.
I was about to comment that at first glance, a funny car just looks like a strange automobile. And then you see the driver sitting right dead in the middle of it, just as if it were any other type of racing machine, and you realize that it's something more than just what you'd see on the city street.
That's true, and even though there's nothing on these automobiles that's stock, not even the body, they're made out of very, very lightweight fiberglass. They're just because there's a strong product identity factor. The Chevy Ford for the Chevy funny cars, and the Ford for the Ford, and so forth. Mazmanian, utilizing a Plymouth Barracuda appearing replica of a Plymouth Barracuda. Driver Richard Cerrone strapped in. He's completed his burnouts, and he'll meet the Dodge of Roland Leon, appropriately named the Hawaiian. Inside the cockpit, you can see Butch Moss. Moss moving up very slowly. These machines utilize a 2-speed transmission. They have onboard fire extinguishers and every conceivable safety device. The nitromethane fumes are very strong against the mast. An unbelievable wheel stand by Richard Cerrone. Moss blazes the tires to victory. You'll seldom see a funny car stand on the bumper like that, Tom.
Take another look at it, Steve. It is really something.
Incredible wheel stand, especially considering that the drivers think there's a lack of traction. Now you'll see the front wheels start to go skyward. Cerrone not lifting at all. Rocks over, and it may bounce all the way up. There it goes. Almost all 4 wheels off the ground. It could have done some severe damage to that $20,000 car.
Costs as high as $30,000. Now to the bleach box. After cleaning and heating his tires comes Pat Foster. That's his opponent in the blue car, Tom McEwen. This is Pat on the far lane in the red car. He was the top qualifier, 212 miles per hour. And Tom McEwen qualified 5th. Foster from Tarzana, California. Tom McEwen from Fountain Valley, California. Moving up to the start. Going to be coming up momentarily. There it is. Tom McEwen's off first. Pat Foster's trying to catch him with the red car. Pat Foster's coming up, and at the finish, it is Pat Foster. 6.69 is the time. 220.04 miles per hour. Here come the next quarterfinalists. That's Roger Lindemood. And look at those tires as they spin them. They really rise. The front end goes way down. The back end goes up. Here's his opponent, Dale Poldy in the red car. He'll be on the outside lane from Wilmington, California. Poldy qualified 7th. Roger Lindemood qualified 11th. Both pulling up to the starting line now. Lindemood in the blue car. And there they go! And Lindemood just goes up in smoke. Too much horsepower, and he lost traction for... Before we continue with the funny car quarterfinals, I'd like to say that funny cars are a sophisticated exotic fuel dragster masquerading as a family car. The body is even plastic, and the horsepower, 1,500 horses. Now, earlier we talked to one of our semi-finalists. Pat Foster, exactly what is a funny car?
Well, the name funny car derived, in 1965, where we started altering the wheelbases on some of the stock cars, but they just had something that made people say, boy, that car looks a little funny. Basically, the controls inside of the car are such that this is your rear wheel brakes, your hand brake system here. This handle down here between my legs activates the reverser. It either in the forward position the car goes forward, in the backward position it goes backwards. My left foot's on the clutch pedal. This control between my legs is a shifter. You go from low gear to high gear. It's a 2-speed only system, and you just push it forward in about the middle of the course, and you'll go from low gear to high gear. And these are probably the most important thing to the driver inside the car, and that's your fire system. And they're set before we make a run, and in the advent of a fire of any serious nature at all, then the driver lets go of the steering wheel and crosses his arms and hits the 2 black knobs, which automatically sets off a system that's plumbed throughout the entire car, that plumbs the fire system to any place in the car there may be a fire. Up here we've got our parachute releases, which are a dual chute system on this particular car. Some guys run 1, some guys run 2. I stagger the handles just enough that I can pick a chute to pull, even if I want to pull one, or I can pull them both. And over here we got a fuel shut-off, which in the advent of a fire also, you hit your fire system and close the fuel shut-off system. And down buried where you can't even see it is a magneto switch. It's just a basic on and off toggle switch. And basically that's about it.
Continuing now with the funny car quarterfinals, this should be a beauty. There's the defending champion, Butch Moss from Santa Rosa, California. The blue car with the red trim, and there's the starter, Buster Couch. And Butch Moss will be facing Ed the Ace McCullough. That's McCullough from Clovis, California, winner of the 71 National Funny Car class. They're approaching the starting line. That's Moss on the near side. And there's the start. They're off fairly equally, a very close race. And it looks like McCullough takes the lead. McCullough wins it. His time, 6.65, 217.91 miles per hour. Here's another quarterfinal pairing. Swinging into view now is Jim Dunn from La Mirada, California, in the red car. It's the only rear-engine funny car in the competition here. He'll be facing Jake Johnson of Fort Worth, Texas, who'll be in the blue car. Now watch him spin his wheels and watch them rise, coming out of the bleach box. In that bleach box to clean the wheels and heat them up is latex, glue, bleach. Everybody has their own concoction. That is Jake Johnson from Fort Worth, Texas, there in the blue car in the near lane as we switch back to Jimmy Dunn in the red car. They're off. Dunn got the start, but Jake is coming up on him on the near lane. Johnson at the end is the winner. Jake Johnson, 6.94, 178.92 miles per hour.
Suddenly it was time for the funny cars, and some wild ones burned out of the staging area. The first duel in the second round featured Al Hanna driving the Eastern Raider against Setzer and Foster's Chevy Vega. Setzer's Vega is first through the traps with a 6.90 at 207.85 miles per hour. The crowd was waiting for this one. The go between Dick Clark's Blue Max Mustang in lane 1 and Kenny Safford's driving Mr. Norm's Silver Dodge. The Blue Max screams past Kenny Safford to take the win at 217 miles per hour. ET 6.71. Joe Lee lights the fuse under his Charger to squeak out a close win over Gary Bolger, driving the Gold Digger. This last run in the second round put Paula Murphy in her oil company special against Jim Paoli in the red, white, and blue Vega. Paoli pulls Paula's petticoat with a winning ET of 6.64 at 209 miles per hour.
19-year-old Billy Meyer lying on his back underneath his funny car, getting it ready for the semifinals.
I got it, Ed. I got it. Right behind you, Fred. What's that?
Billy is an absolute wizard when it comes to automobile engines. And believe it or not, they can take an automobile engine out of one of these cars and have it replaced in 35 minutes. And the activity is just as frenzied over in Don Shoemaker's pit area. Don does the work on his car, too.
Down off the jack, let's head on up there. Down and back. I still need an 11/16.
trying to mastermind his way to victory over Billy Meyer. And now everybody cheers as Billy Meyer comes out, getting ready for the semifinal matchup between him and Don Shoemaker. As Billy comes into that wet area on the pavement, he'll spin those rear tires, heating them up. The water keeps the tires from blistering. Of course, spinning them like that and making them smoke heats them up, gives them lots of traction and bite, which is what you need at the start line. And now, here comes Don Shoemaker from Park Ridge, Illinois, known as Super Shoe. Won the national championship in 1970. Hopes to repeat here in the Nationals in 1974. And Billy Meyer hopes to capture his very first national title. Waco Willie is his nickname, and we talked to him a little bit earlier.
Hey, Billy, I don't want to bother you when you're real busy here, but what did you find in the shaft? Was it okay?
Yeah, it was perfect. That surprised me, but we had to find out.
Billy Meyer was satisfied with the crankshaft on his car, so we moved over to Don Shoemaker's pit.
What seems to be the problem? You seem to be working frantically here.
Oh, we got a little bit too much weight on the clutch, and it's pulling the motor down in the middle and burning some pistons out of it.
That's why you changed the pistons, huh?
That's right. We have to change 4 of them.
Well, aside from the mechanical problem, how about the psychological problem going against young Billy Meyer?
I'll take him on any day of the week. He's my hero right now because he's a good friend of mine. He's a very young man, and he's doing a hell of a job, but I'll take him on any day of the week.
Well, you won't have to wait any day of the week. It's coming up real soon.
That's right.
It's coming up right now, as a matter of fact, as Don Shoemaker eases his car to the line. Boy, what a moment of tension here. Everything has to be so right at that start, and Billy Meyer gets a good start. He's got a half a car length lead now, a car length, now 2 cars, and he goes over, and the engine blows on Shoemaker's car as he crosses the finish line. Billy Meyer defeats Don Shoemaker in the semis of the funny car, and Shoemaker blows the engine at the line.
Here is the first race of this round. Quarterfinal action. It's Jungle Jim Lieberman against Raymond Beadle. In other action this round, Denny Savage, driving the Tri-Town Hustler, defeated Norm Wilcox, but Wilcox unable to answer the call. Little John Lombardo beat Tom Brock, and we're ready to between Beadle and Lieberman. Raymond Beadle's Mustang, 6.16 seconds. Moving very strong as he defeats Jungle Jim Lieberman. Here's the car that has dominated it. In fact, Don Prudhomme has already annexed the World Championship title as he has earned enough points without even winning this race to become the world champion for 1975. His competition, Pat Foster, the Chicago Patrol. Don Prudhomme has already gone 241 miles an hour with a funny car, the fastest man in history ever to drive a full-bodied car through the quarter mile. He is looking for that magic 5-second run with a funny car. No one has ever done it before. Can Don Prudhomme do it here at the NHRA World Final? In this pass, it'll be Don Prudhomme against Pat Foster. Foster out of Chicago, Illinois. The all-important start. Both drivers concentrating on the Christmas tree as they approach those staging beams, inching into the beams. Reaction time, all important here. Don Prudhomme easily outdistances Pat Foster. The rematch of the Nationals coming up next in semifinal action here at the NHRA World Finals. Raymond Beadle, the winner of the Nationals, and funny car eliminator in the Blue Max, against none other than Don the Snake Prudhomme.
Don Prudhomme, you've already annexed the World Championship title, $20,000. You're coming in running as faster than any man in history in a funny car. Does this lessen your desire to win now that you've already annexed the World Champion title?
No, certainly not. That's just kind of a little frosting on the cake, actually. It just kind of adds to it, and it just pumps you up and run a little bit harder. And no, we're strictly out to win the race. Matter of fact, I would trade all that for a win.
Don Prudhomme winning 5 of 7 national events already this year. An incredible record going up against Raymond Beadle, the man he lost to in the finals at the Nationals. Don Prudhomme already the quickest car here at the World Finals. Raymond Beadle, the second quickest. Let's see how they do. Leaving the line together, but look at Don Prudhomme tremendous time for Don the Snake Prudhomme, ladies and gentlemen, 5.98 seconds. 5.98 seconds for Don Prudhomme. That's the first 5-second time ever recorded by a funny car in the history of drag racing. His speed, 237 miles an hour. Raymond Beadle losing with a 634, shutting it off at 191, knowing there's no chance to catch the Snake. So the Snake goes into the finals against Denny Savage, setting for the first time in history the first funny car ever in the fives.
It roars into life. At the touch of the toe, this power plant can deliver for Don Prudhomme more than 1,000 horsepower. The body comes down now as he heads to the starting line for the big one, the finals against Gary Bergen. Cars are on the line now, and Prudhomme has changed his mind and taken the right lane. Why? Perhaps we'll be able to find out later. Bergen on the near side for the big money. Remember now, Prudhomme has been undefeated in NHRA national competition all year long. The last defeat in this type of competition came here 1 year ago. Bergen on the inside, inches ahead, and wins by a wide margin to unseat and end Prudhomme's victory streak.
Funny Car Eliminator semifinals, Bob Pickett in the near lane driving Mickey Thompson's U.S. Marine car. The favorite, Don the Snake Prudhomme, the U.S. Army Monza. Smoke off Bob Pickett's car, the tires losing traction, and it's Prudhomme through the finish line first. Once again, winning another race and moving into the finals. Ed the Ace McCulloch from Fresno, California, his competition, the Shady Glen car, driven by Pat Foster, a new car in competition on the West Coast, doing very well. Both cars completed their burnouts, now staging. Let's watch. A tremendous blower explosion for Ed McCulloch. And Pat Foster crossing the center line, that will disqualify him. But let's look at Ed McCulloch. He apparently is okay, but the car severely damaged. A tremendous supercharger explosion. As the tree went green, Ed McCulloch hits the gas pedal, and off comes the supercharger. There in slow motion, you see it once again. Foster leaving the line okay, but then crossing a little bit later. Let's watch again in super slow motion. Incredible deformation of the fiberglass body as that heavy supercharger comes up through the windshield, fuel spurting out of the lines, the emergency crew right on the scene. Ed McCulloch winning, but he's going to have a lot of work to do if he can even get the car repaired. Of auto racing's most exotic cars, Frank's on Manufacturers Midway.
Earlier we gave you a look at the Top Fuel dragster. Let's take a look now at the machine they call the Funny Car. Funny Car is basically a redesigned fuel dragster with a fiberglass body. The body designs are replicas of many popular American compact cars, but these are built specifically for racing. This one, for instance, is a replica of a Trans Am Pontiac Firebird. Big difference from their street cousins, though. They only weigh about 1,700 pounds. They put out around 2,000 horsepower, about the same as a Top Fueler. The interiors are roll bars and aluminum sheet metal, has a single cockpit for the driver. There are no doors. The driver gets in and the body is then set down over him. Speeds about 240 miles an hour in just about 6 seconds. And for obvious reasons, the racers and the fans call them floppers.
Dave? Right, Frank, picking up the action in Funny Car Eliminator in round number 2. A total of 16 cars started eliminations here at this 77 Gator Nationals. 8 cars remaining. It's Tom McEwen driving the Corvette against Roger Lindemood. And for you trivia buffs, Roger Lindemood was the 1964 top stock eliminator at the U.S. Nationals. McEwen against Lindemood, Funny Car Eliminator. Tom McEwen's car breaking something. Roger Lindemood streaking to an easy victory. 6.51 seconds, 217 miles an hour. In a battle of the services, the U.S. Army Plymouth Arrow of Don Prudhomme from Granada Hills. His competitor, Bob Pickett, driving Mickey Thompson's car. This is the U.S. Marine entry. Pickett's car, a replica of a 77 Starfire. Mickey Thompson, another of the famed names of drag racing. Defending champion Don Prudhomme has an easy go of it. His time a 6.34 second, 228 mile an hour charge, as Bob Pickett coasts through at only 69 miles an hour, going up in smoke, the tires losing traction from the start. Here's Al Bergler out of Detroit, Michigan, the Motown Shaker. Bergler pulling up into the burnout area. Water puddles allowing the tires to break loose easily, and the 2,000 plus horsepower spinning them, smoking the tires. And you see the parts flying and oil coming out from underneath Al Bergler's car. Apparently, something going wrong with the motor. Ray Beadle in the Blue Max pulling into the burnout area, and the official saying, shut it off, as Al Bergler dead on the racetrack. The car, lots of mechanical problems. You can see crew members out kicking off the parts and pieces that came bouncing out from behind it. Here comes Al Bergler's crew now. They'll be lifting up the body. Al will be getting out of the car. There was no fire. These cars carry an onboard fire extinguishing system. The NHRA Safety Safari truck pulling out onto the track to begin the cleanup preparation. On a single run with the Blue Max, every car must make the same number of runs in eliminations, so Ray Beadle goes through the timing traps, 6.28 seconds, his speed 228 miles an hour. The last pair of this second round of funny car eliminations. In the near lane, Gordy Bonin, hailing from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, traveling quite a distance to get to Gainesville, Florida. Gary Bergen from California, the Orange Baron, a former national champion. His car, a 77 Monza. Both cars inching into the staging beams, getting set for that green light, which means go. And a great handling job by Gary Bergen as Gordy Bonin records the low elapsed time. Pairing in the second round of funny car racing finds Tom McEwen. He drives the Corvette-bodied car in the near lane against the ace, Ed McCulloch. McCulloch finished in the runner-up position here at the Summer Nationals back in 1972 and would love to make it to the winner's circle. Tom McEwen has been very consistent throughout most of 1978. Performance times equaling those, nearly at least, of the Snake. Has yet to make it to the winner's circle, though. Funny cars, quite a handful to drive. The fastest full-bodied cars in all of drag racing. McCulloch with the lead off the starting line. And not to be headed, Ed McCulloch. How about this? 6.10, a 6:10 elapsed time, 237 miles an hour. When we talk about elapsed time, that's the amount of time it takes to go from the starting line to the finish line, which is only 1/4 of a mile away, and that's all, of course, from a standing start. Denny Savage at the wheel of the Power Steel John Powers car. The Camaro-bodied funny car on the tower side. Al Segrini driving for Fred Castronova. And in a close race, it's Denny Savage. A fine 6.12 seconds, 6.12, 236 miles an hour. Segrini gave it a good shot, but with a red light start, a 6:31 didn't pay off. You saw him move just perceptively ahead of Denny Savage there in the circle. You saw the red light left on the tree, meaning Al Segrini left just a hair too soon. The Canadian car, Gordy Bonin. 240 Gordies, known as in the drag racing circles. The reason for this, Bonin loves to drive them fast, and over 240 miles an hour in a funny car is quite a speed. John Lombardo from North Hollywood, having the best day of his career on the national event circuit. Noted for running in the western part of the United States. Lombardo just blasting ahead of Gordy Bonin. 6.12 seconds, his speed 236 miles an hour. As Gordy Bonin falls to little... The Hawaiian of Roland Leong, Ron Colson at the wheel. The distinction of having to run the #1 qualifier, Don Prudhomme. 3 times in a row, he has won the World Championship. Prudhomme, the most feared driver right now in all of drag racing, regardless of category, regardless of type of car. Prudhomme, Mr. Consistency. Defending champion at the Summer Nationals, the car owner, Roland Leong, you see him there in the green shirt, directing his driver, Ron Colson, into exactly the spot he wants, where he can find the most traction to give those big, wide 18-inch tires the bite necessary to get him to the finish line first. But he's got a tough road to hoe. And a hole shot by Ron Colson. Will it pay off at the finish line? A close race, and it's Ron Colson.
Right now, the sound of funny cars. John Force driving the Corvette-bodied car, Force hailing from Placentia, California, up against Austin, Texas, Kenny Bernstein. The 34-year-old Bernstein returning to drag racing last season after a 5-year layoff, at which time he formed his own business chain of restaurants throughout the United States and decided to come back into drag racing first class, and he did it with this beautiful Plymouth Arrow-bodied car. John Force, a longtime racer on the West Coast, he also picking up a major sponsorship and deciding to head on the national tour throughout all of 1979, and he's earned his way right here into the finals at the Cajun Nationals. Two of the best funny cars in the country meeting at State Capitol Dragway in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The burnouts completed, both drivers approaching the starting line, concentrating on the Christmas tree, trying to eke out that little bit of advantage at the starting line that may put them ahead at the finish line. Let's watch. And it's John Force out first, but something goes wrong, and Kenny Bernstein wins his first ever NHRA national title.
Dave, absolutely one of the most beautiful cars in all of drag racing in any category finds the winner's circle here at the Cajun Nationals. Its owner, its driver, a businessman racer, Kenny Bernstein, making his first visit to glory NHRA style. Many, many years ago, he raced as far as runner-up, retired from racing to become a very, very successful restaurant and bar owner throughout the Southwest. Congratulations, Kenny Bernstein.
Just great, just super.
Were you a little sick there for a moment when Force was out in front of you?
Well, yeah, you know, the car left pretty good, and then it seemed to get the tires loose again, and I was wondering for a second we were going to get back around him, but then she took off, and I don't know what happened to him, but we're here, and that's what counts.
Well, congratulations to you. You've brought a lot of class to this sport. Not only your race car, but your transporter. Everything you do seems to have that, just that touch of class and polish.
Well, that's a super compliment, Steve, from you and anybody else, and I really appreciate that. We like to do it that way. We think that the sport deserves it, and we think, just like I did 5 years ago when I quit, if I couldn't go back into it first class and really do it the right way, I just wouldn't do it, and I appreciate the compliment because it makes me feel great.
The funny car is really a 25-year, $40,000 evolution of the stock car. Mechanically, the engine, the transmission, the differential, identical to that of a top fuel dragster, but that's where the similarities end. With the engine in front of the driver, an onboard fire extinguisher system is required. The exhaust header's much different than that of the fuel dragsters, but the big difference really are the flip-top fiberglass bodies that act as an airfoil pushing downward on the car for more traction, even an escape hatch in case the driver has to make a speedy exit.
An incredibly fortunate driver, Tim Gross, hearing the cheers of the crowd as he walks away from the wreckage of one of the worst crashes in all of motorsports. A $40,000 funny car is a pile of junk. That's what happened to Tim Gross's Datsun 280Z bodied funny car as it slammed into both guardrails at National Trail Raceway during a qualifying attempt. The crew having to lift the remains of the chassis and engine. You notice the front wheels completely gone from the car. Tim Gross looking on, very fortunate to be able to even watch what's going on at this moment.
Now we have the classic funny car matchup, a semifinal pitting world champion Raymond Beadle in the Blue Max.
We always run the car just as hard as we have to win. We're going to race to win this time, too.
Versus Don the Snake Prudhomme.
We've changed gear ratios, and we're really rolling the dice right now, as they say, and just going for the big number to try and put him away.
This is a classic matchup worthy of final round filling. Beadle, who set a new qualifying record here of 5.973 seconds, and also was under 6 seconds in his second round victory against Prudhomme, who was a 5-time Pomona winner. In 1975, 76, 77, and 78, Perdum was unbeatable here at Pomona. In 1965, Perdum's first victory here was in Top Fuel. On the other hand, Beadle, a two-time world champion, has never tasted victory here at the Los Angeles County Fairgrounds, but his car's been exceptionally fast. They're in the line now, waiting. And Perdum babbles in the start as the Texan floorboards the Blue Max through the trap to stop the clocks, and still again under 6 seconds. 5.937 as Perdum coasts down the line. Past debris on the track. 245.23 miles an hour for the Blue Max, which apparently isn't... Oh, it's a convertible. The roof has come off. The windshield is missing. Raymond Beadle and the Blue Max crew are going to be faced with a monumental repair job to get that car ready for the final. And this graphically shows the forces that act on these cars at speeds approaching 250 miles an hour. The wind gets in, blows things right off. And in the next semifinal, pitting Billy Meyer against John Force, Meyer has had similar problems. His body cracked during the preliminary rounds, and he's worried about it collapsing. And then he blew an engine and had to make a hurried-up engine change to get ready for this next semifinal against brute force. That engine Billy Meyer just changed is smoking rather badly, and it could mean trouble. I chatted with him as he came to the line. Billy, do you have anything left after this emotional interval between rounds?
Oh yeah, we're just getting ready again right now. That's our fourth motor, so it's we don't have much left in parts put together. We got a lot unput together in the trailer, but we just have to put them together again.
But you're breathing hard, you're gasping, and the race is about to begin.
That's all right. I can relax real quick.
So relaxed Billy Meyer is as he comes up against John Brute Force of Fullerton, California, a big man, and his funny car is vibrating at the sides as well. These funny cars are made to look like pleasure cars, but of course they're racing machines out and out with thin plastic bodies on them. Neither Meyer nor Force has ever won at Pomona, but Meyer did win one of the 10 national races last year. And it looks like Mr. Force was too anxious, and Meyer goes down. Yes, he knows it. He red-lighted. Meyer gets it at 6.355 or 181 miles an hour. A tough break for John Brute Force, a native Californian.
The assault on the qualifying standards did not lessen with funny cars. World champion Raymond Beadle in the Blue Max ended in the number 1 position with a fine 5.91 second time. And as you can see, the rest of the field was close behind, with the number 16 car just a quarter of a second slower. And Beadle continued to tell the story of Funny Car Eliminator as he came to the line in the first round of competition earlier this afternoon. The experts had classed Beadle as the strong favorite, expecting little trouble from the number 9 qualifier, Al Segrini. And it was then that it happened. With incredible skill, Beadle regained control and drove the car to a stop. The crowd waited to see whether Beadle had been injured. And as he climbed out, untouched, the crowd roared its approval. As a lot of work has gone on both of these cars to get them ready for this final attack on the quarter mile. Tim Gross in the near lane. That's the right lane. He doesn't particularly like it. Remember, that's where he's had his problems before. Frank Hawley has been dominating that left-hand lane, and the parachute comes out on Tim Gross's car. He loses as the vibration shakes the parachute out of the car, and another blistering 6.07 for Frank Hawley as the Chi-Town Hustler picks up nearly $20,000 and a Gator Nationals championship. Steve?
Coming out of the legendary Chi-Town Hustler of Farconis Coil and Minnick, loved all over the country for its long, powerful burnouts, has now proven to be championship caliber as well. For Frank Hawley, his first ever national title. For the car owners, well, they were in a final once before many years ago, but for them, their first NHRA Oscar as well. Tim Gross comes over, who worked so very, very hard to get his car ready. Tim may have even had a little bit of an edge back at the line, but the powerful Chi-Town did it. Something else, boy.
Thank you very much. It feels pretty good. Those guys all look pretty happy.
Yeah, I'll bet they are. A little bit of shock here. Can you believe this has happened to you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you drive a car like this, it's bound to happen, right? I'm real happy for Tim, too. I mean, he works real hard. I'm glad to race him. I wish Of course, you know, we could have advantaged our deal at Pomona. I wish Raymond had been around this long, but we'll get him down the road.
Well, the money went to where it was needed the most in this particular final.
Boy, I'll tell you, and it's about time.
Okay, a happy Frank Cully, as you can see. Our congratulations to Austin Coyle and Pat Minnick and all the gang from Chicago, Illinois, the Chi-Town Hustler.
Indianapolis Raceway Park, and on the track, the crowd-pleasing fiberglass-bodied funny cars. In the far lane, the team of Candies and Hughes with Mark Oswald, their driver, and in the near lane is Kenny Bernstein. From Dallas, Texas comes Kenny Bernstein. He's been having some real problems as of late, but Mark Oswald, who's driving for one of the best teams in the business, the Louisiana-based Candies and Hughes, has got a great ride. The brilliant blue funny car, a replica of a Pontiac Trans Am with a nitro-burning 2,500 horsepower engine, while in the Bernstein camp, again, one of those nitro-burning engines, but a Mercury LN7 fiberglass body. Bernstein has been on quite a tear lately. He has had a very up and down season, but if you ever hear of anybody breaking out of a slump, Bernstein has done it. He won the recent North Star Nationals, then won the completion of the Big Bud Shootout, which paid him $50,000 cash. And now here he is in round number 2 against Mark Oswald at the U.S. Nationals, striving for another championship. Both drivers now approaching the line where the concentration is all so important. The start is everything, and it is Bernstein out first. But Oswald hot on his heels. They enter the speed trap side by side. Bernstein wins the race, but ladies and gentlemen, the fastest time ever for a funny car. Mark Oswald just ran over 257 miles an hour and lost the race. The next pair of cars started at the starting line and into the water, designed to allow the tires to start spinning. Then that smoke you see coming off the tires actually burning the rubber across the starting line. The body goes down over the 2,500 horsepower plus and tubular chassis of Billy Meyer, the defending champion. He's driving a Pontiac Trans Am bodied replica in this funny car category. Billy Meyer took about a month and a half off. His crew returned to his Waco, Texas home, and they said, we have got to get our act together before the Nationals. He did no racing for almost a month and a half and came in here and qualified in the number 2 position. And look, there's problems with the Billy Meyer car. The crew raising the fiberglass body to gain access to the engine. Billy is sitting behind the engine. It's still running, and we don't see anything coming out of it. But there's obviously something wrong. A very animated Billy Meyer trying to point and relay with hand signals. Something's wrong with that racing engine. The crew looking over the fuel lines. The supercharger, of course, sitting on top of the engine. John Force patiently talking to his crew, or at least nodding. The body's going back down. Starter Buster Counts checks it to make sure it's A-OK and hooked at the front. And Billy Meyer, your number 2 qualifier, has got problems. If Mark Oswald lost his concentration by looking at his oil pressure, think what Billy Meyer's going through right now. He smokes the tires off the line. John Force, a little loss of traction, but he recovers quickly. And John Force wins the race, 5.90 seconds at a speed over 236 miles an hour. All eyes on this huge crowd riveted on the starting line as we get set for the final in Funny Car Eliminator. Kenny Bernstein has been the dominant car, but the surprising John Collins from Long Beach, California, qualified number 2 and is now in the finals against Bernstein. Into the staging beams, both cars leave on a green light. And it's a very close race. Kenny Bernstein in the near lane begins to pull away, and a tremendous run. And ladies and gentlemen, 260 miles an hour by a funny car as Kenny Bernstein shatters all performance standards for speed. Here's the first finals at Indy for this man, Jim Head. In the near lane, it is the defending champion, Kenny Bernstein. Bernstein has got to be the favorite based on performance. He ran 5.74 seconds in the semifinals. Jim Head seems to be stuck in those 590s, and he said earlier he's got to run better than that. Can he do it in the finals? He'll need everything to beat Bernstein. All eyes in this sprawling facility focused on these two funny cars. Over 5,000 horsepower leave the starting line, and up in smoke goes Bernstein, and Jim Head, with the upset of this race, has won the funny car title. For Jim Head, his first full year in funny car racing culminates with winning the most prestigious drag race of them all, the U.S. Nationals title. His crew absolutely overjoyed. There it is.
Motorsports, nothing matches AA fuel funny cars. And what a contrast we have among the combatants for the World Finals event title. Sherm Gunn, the giant killer, who disposed of, in order, Kenny Bernstein, Don Prudhomme, and Billy Meyer, has been the spoiler here today. Mark Oswald, he has now clinched his first ever funny car world title for the Candies and Hughes team. He is up against Sherm Gunn. And don't think Oswald is not aware of what Gunn has been pulling off here today on the Pomona quarter mile. But Oswald may be handicapped a bit here. He had to change engines. They hurt the motor in the semifinals so badly, they had to go into the trailer and pull out one of their spares. Anytime you change engines, there's always a chance that something could be left loose or not be right. Racers will tell you all their engines are the same. Well, I've never seen two run the same. Sherm Gunn, on the other hand, just put in a couple of pistons, had an enjoyable time between rounds chatting with his friends. His young son, only 9 years old, little Sherm, helping out as well as a lot of his friends and neighbors. No fancy designer uniforms or 18-wheelers in Sherm's pits. A very economical act. In fact, here was the engine change as it occurred just moments ago in the pit area. Mark Oswald himself on the far side of the engine, helping out Tom Cattleman, Candies and Hughes. And here, the contrast over in Sherm Gunn's pit. They had time for little Sherm to get in there and clean out the inside of the body, so his daddy would have a nice clean car for his first ever final round. Can Sherm Gunn do it again? If he does, these grandstands will explode, because you could literally throw a rock and hit Sherman's house from the LA County Fairgrounds here at Pomona. He ran all of the national events, or the majority of them this year, and I tell you, I think that kind of experience has helped get Sherm Gunn into the final round. But here, in the near lane, is the quickest funny car in the world, but there's a problem with the Oswald car. A brief magnesium fire. He probably blew a head gasket. Lo and behold, does little Sherm and Mrs. Sherm ever love this? A 5.87 seconds will put $25,000 or $30,000 in the Sherm Gunn racing account.
And Ed, that revolution continues into another great season of championship drag racing, both in race car design and in personnel movement. First of all, the race cars. Kenny Bernstein has just about the zoomiest looking funny car ever built. In fact, crafted by Indianapolis racers with aerodynamics paramount in their thoughts. John Force also with a beautiful new race car. And more importantly there, Austin Coyle, who wrenched the Chi-Town Hustler to 2 world titles, has parked that car, gone to work to try to put John Force into the winner's circle for the first time. In qualifying, the big news was this car, the Blue Max. The only 2 things they did in the offseason was to add a second parachute as required now and change the number on the car, because Raymond Beadle no longer drives the Blue Max. He still owns it, but in the cockpit is John Lombardo of Southern California. On his very first full run, Lombardo set a national record at 5.68 seconds. His second run, he backed it up within the required 1%. So this car and that new driver getting along beautifully. But the Blue Max and crew have got their work cut out for them, because in round number 1, Rick Johnson and Roland Leon's Hawaiian car ran even quicker than their record at 5.66. Lombardo came right behind Johnson with an equaling 5.66. So it is going to be a thrilling day in funny car competition. And the funny cars are not the only machines out there smashing records.
Here's the final in funny car. 2 of the greatest names ever in drag racing history. The Budweiser King, Kenny Bernstein in the far lane. Don Prudhomme in the near lane driving the Pepsi Wendy's Special, the Pontiac Trans Am body against the Ford Tempo. 2,500 horsepower plus, those engines burning the nitromethane fuel as they patiently wait the final staging moves by each driver. They've got to be thinking, how can I pull out this win? And Prudhomme drifts close to the center line. He goes across the center line. That means disqualification, and Bernstein has won another race. The crew overjoyed with the victory. What a way to cap a season, the World Championship and now the World Finals title. Bernstein has been one of the most consistent racers on this racetrack. Number 1 qualifier, he ran 5.62 in qualifying, 5.60 in the first round. Martin is out close to the guardrail. He has to shut it off, but Bernstein continues through, and there another 5.60 second elapsed time. His speed over 252 miles an hour as the number 1 qualifier, the world champion, goes into the semifinals. Bernstein and Armstrong are most concerned about this car, the Corvette driven by John Force. Qualifying in the number 2 spot, Force, along with his highly paid and talented crew chief, Austin Coyle, beat Ray Higley in round number 1. They were to have run Ron Corretti, but in a late afternoon qualifying session yesterday, Corretti in the far lane was against Dave Yahara. Yahara drifted across the center line into the center line lights, and then a rear-end collision at over 240 miles an hour. Both cars were essentially destroyed in this horrendous accident, but as we have seen so many times before in NHRA Championship drag racing, both drivers emerged from the wreckage unhurt. Nationals event 1 year ago with Al Segrini at the wheel. In round number 1, he defeated Billy Meyer. Mike Dunn, John Force, second round of racing in Funny Car Eliminator. Force is following in the tracks of Kenny Bernstein, who just recorded low elapsed time at 5.60 seconds. Dunn, the new driver for Joe Pisano, trying to make it 2 Winter Nationals wins in a row. He's got the advantage off the starting line, but look at Force thunder by. At the finish line, John Force, 5.75 seconds. The speed on the Corvette, 252 miles an hour. Johnny West in the far lane, the newest driver for Roland Leong against Dale Puldy. Puldy in round number 1 had a barrel full of excitement as he raced against Ed McCulloch. It was a good race off the starting line. McCulloch in the near lane, driving the Oldsmobile owned by Larry Minor against the Buick of Puldy. Watch what happens. Puldy way out in front as they approach the finish line, and then a tremendous explosion for Ed McCulloch. Incredibly, he was able to bring the remains of the car to a safe stop.
When you see the video, I think you'll be amazed at how hard you were driving that car in that inferno.
Well, the main thing, I mean, I knew that Puldy was alongside somewhere. I knew the guardrail was on the other somewhere, you know, and anything in between, I was trying to stay away from both of them. I left my visor down until the flame went out, and obviously it was, you know, oiled and burnt, and I couldn't see, and finally I lifted the visor up enough that I could see where I was going, and then, you know, at that point I knew I was going to be okay.
The experience of Ed McCulloch paid off in this instance as he, with a brilliant driving job, brought that bouncing, sliding, burning car to a safe stop. Dale Puldy goes on to take the win, advances to the second round, and is now against Johnny West. West, a year ago, was racing his own car. Now, in the cockpit of one of the finest funny cars in the country, he defeated Trip Shoemake in round number 1. Johnny West will be in the lane furthest from our camera. In the near lane is Puldy. A tremendous amount of pressure has got to be riding on the shoulders of Johnny West. Leong, the car owner, one of the best engine builders in the country. West qualified well, ran well in defeating Shoemake, but this his first major event competition at the wheel of a car of this caliber. West is out in front. He's done his job. He gets near the center line. He crosses it. Automatic disqualification for West. Puldy wins the race, a fine 5.77 second elapsed time. His speed only 244 miles an hour, so Dale Puldy goes into the semifinals. Our last pair of cars in the second round finds the Pontiac Trans Am-bodied car of Tim Gross in the near lane. Gross is racing against a former Californian, now living in Oklahoma. This is John Collins. Collins won his first ever NHRA championship last season when he won the Fall Nationals title, but here he qualified with a 5.67, almost a tenth of a second quicker than Tim Gross. Gross defeated John Lombardo in the first round of competition, while John Collins took on the Corvette of Tom Hoover and came out the winner. Collins fell off his qualifying pace just a bit in the first round, but Tim Gross improved over his qualifying time. He may be one to watch in Funny Car Eliminator. Gross in the near lane, Collins in the far lane. It's a green light start. Gross builds an early lead. He continues to extend it. And across the finish line, Tim Gross continues to improve. A brilliant 5.68 second elapsed time. 246 miles an hour.
And a new body shape.
Oh, absolutely. The Buick completely disfiguration that no one's seen before in our sport. It's different. A lot of Can-Am stuff here, GTP stuff maybe, but the downforce, Gary Wheeler and Dale Armstrong just did a super job.
Now look at how clean the exhaust pipes are firing on Kenny Bernstein's car. Unlike Graham Callett, he is throwing raw fuel into the atmosphere, definitely not firing properly on all 8 cylinders as they move up the stage.
Both cars up to the line now. Bernstein the far side, Cowan the near side. America's Cup of drag racing as Cowan sits ready in the cockpit. There's the amber light. They're running, and Kenny Bernstein grabs the whole shot. And an explosion in Cowan's car. Fire continues to burn. Kenny Bernstein comes across the line, the winner of 5:49.264.
In funny car qualifying, Ed McCulloch lined up in the far lane of the track, Jim Head in the near lane. A tremendous driving job by Ed McCulloch kept the Miller American car from overturning. As the car left the starting line, it immediately moved to the right. Ed corrected. The car started out of control. As it crossed over the center line, it ran into the rear of Jim Head, then rocked up on the left wheels and header pipes, sliding down the racetrack. McCulloch brought the car back to 4 wheels.
10 times he had been to the final round without a win, but this time it was different, and John Force went on to win. So the frustration is over for the man who drives this car. And John, I've got to ask you, how does it feel to arrive here a champion?
Steve, you've been here with me so many times. We've done this before, and the only difference is now it's changed. You take 12 years of your life, the first half with Don Prudhomme taking it away. You come back with Kenny Bernstein taking it away, and one day you can finally call home to your 5-year-old daughter and say, yeah, we won it this time. We took it all. It makes my hair stand up. It's something we have earned. My crew chief, Austin Coyle, we worked hard for it. We won it. The sponsors paid for it. We got there, and the fans got it. And I thank God it's finally over. It may only be beginning now, and that's where we're at. I mean, it's a whole new ball game today, and I'm scared to death. But at least we were there once, and we're going after it again.
John Force, a most enjoyable man. He's in the far lane as he faces the king, Kenny Bernstein.
Bernstein driving a Buick LeSabre-bodied car. John Force with an Olds Forenza. Both cars getting maximum traction. A terrific funny car contest. It is Kenny Bernstein by only 2/100ths of a second. 562 to John Force's 564.
Now these next 2 cars, Dale Pauldee and Kenny Bernstein, were within 1/100th of a second of each other in their performance time from the previous round. And Kenny Bernstein, by just about a foot, defeats Dale Pauldee. His elapsed time, 5.38 seconds. Makes you wonder what kind of pressure Gross is under right now. You know he's got to figure that Oswald's going to run another 5:37. That's how you tune your car, by what the other guy's going to run. Gross smokes the tires. He has to lift off the throttle. Oswald wins it, and Don, it is another 5:37, the 4th in a row. You get kind of tired, Dave. This for Don is just hard work. Ed McCulloch and his crew have put in their hours. Look at the time, 5.36 seconds, 272 miles an hour. McCulloch more than keeping pace with the rest of the field. Either Tom Hoover or John Force in that semifinal round. Problems for Hoover as Force just blasts away from him at the start. Force elapsed time 5.44 seconds, a bit slower than the other cars. Maybe that new engine isn't producing quite the same power that the old one did. Ed McCulloch against John Force in the semifinal. McCulloch with a choice of lanes. The other pair matches the 2 big red cars. Mr. Consistency, Mark Oswald against Kenny Bernstein. Now on the starting line, it is time for the first race of round number 2 competition in Funny Car Eliminator. Here is the 4-time Winston champion, the Budweiser King, Kenny Bernstein. Against Bernstein in this second round race is the surprising Art Hendy. The team of Hendy and Worsham from San Bernardino, California, got by the first round when they defeated Chris Lane. That's the Sutherland family's entry. And Hendy, now in round number 2, has got to race the toughest of them all. Only the second man in the history of the sport to win 4 consecutive Winston titles.
Don Prudhomme did it first back in the mid-70s, and now Kenny Bernstein has been the driver of the 80s. Kenny gives a great deal of credit to that man, his crew chief Dale Armstrong. Bernstein qualified with a 5.30 second elapsed time, good for number 4. Art Hendy had a 5.37 second time. That was good for the number 8 spot. Hendy, like so many other racers, Joe Amato and Darrell Gwynn included, had a successful career in alcohol competition before making the switch to the professional categories. Bernstein in the near lane. Both cars have problems. They slow, and Hendy recovers. Hendy pulls ahead and pulls off the upset. It is Art Hendy with a very slow but winning 6.78 second elapsed time as Bernstein apparently falls victim to mechanical problems. Right now on the track, it is the continuation of round 2 of funny car racing. Ed McCulloch against Mark Oswald. A new national record has already been established in qualifying by Mark Oswald at the wheel of the Candies and Hughes car. He set the elapsed time record and backed it up within the required 1% at 5.29 seconds elapsed time. McCulloch qualified in the number 7 spot at a 5.34 second time for his Miller High Life Oldsmobile. You may ask with good reason why Don Prudhomme with a 5.19 second elapsed time in the number 1 qualifying spot does not hold the new national record. The reason? He has yet to back it up within the required 1% at the same event. Oswald pulls ahead of McCulloch at the start. A close race at the finish line. Oswald 5.33 seconds elapsed time, a losing 5.40. While the racetrack may only be a quarter of a mile long, a lot of action can take place for the driver at the wheel of one of these 4,000 horsepower funny cars. This is Bruce Larson, the man that upset Kenny Bernstein in the final round of the recent Winter Nationals, the season opening event. Larson qualified here at the Super Nationals in the number 5 spot with a 5.30 to race here in round 2 against the quickest of them all, Don Prudhomme, who's had a 5.19 but has yet to get close to it in subsequent runs. Under the watchful eye of starter Buster Couch, Don Prudhomme pulls the Skoal Bandit Pontiac into the staging beam. Bruce Larson has the choice of lanes, and it may have paid off as Prudhomme goes up in smoke. Larson through the quarter mile, the quickest time of eliminations, and a new national record for Bruce Larson, 5.27 seconds. His earlier time serve as the 1% backup for Bruce Larson, the new national record holder for elapsed time. Our next pair, the engines fired and running, are pulling into the water area where they start the burnout procedure. Scott Coletta, the second half of the Coletta Flying Services team. You saw his dad earlier, Connie, who drives the Top Fuel dragster. Here's Tom Hoover at the wheel of the Champion Auto Store's Pontiac Trans Am. It was just one round of racing ago that Hoover pulled off the big upset of that round when he defeated John Force. At the far end, Steve is with Bruce Larson.
May I introduce to you the new NHRA national record holder for elapsed time.
Wow.
5:27.
Oh, that's great. Thanks a lot for being the guy to tell me.
You betcha. My pleasure. You already had the backup run from qualifying. 200 bonus Winston points. Wow.
Oh, it feels good. We've been having some problems with burning pistons at the end of the runs, and I finally decided to just run it the whole way through.
So many people looking at the racetrack and the tire smokes have been conservative. Not your truth.
No. We knew where we were from that time run we got yesterday. Here come my guys. They get a lot of the credit.
The quickest crew in all of drag racing.
After more than 20 years in this sport, it's an incredible start of the new season for Bruce Larson. The Winter Nationals win, and now a new national record. Scott Coletta backing up into the tracks left by those tires on the long, smoky burnout. It is rubber against rubber as Coletta pulls to the line. He qualified number 6 with a 5.32 second elapsed time. Hoover, the number 10 qualifier, had a 5.43, but that was quickly exceeded by his fine 5.36 in the first round. Hoover with problems at the start. Coletta goes up in smoke. He brings the car under control. And
pulls through the finish line, the winner in a rather strange race. Coletta with a 7.60 second elapsed time.
Now set for the funny car final. You are looking at John Force, the defending event champion, and he'll be opposed by Bruce Larson.
And with the sun almost down, you'll see the long nitro flames that are always there, but not visible under bright sunshine. This should be quite a show for the fans. The funny car, final round.
Oh, it's a beautiful start.
Larson got a little out of the groove, but manages to hang on. Bruce Larson wins it 5. Oh, he's got a little fire underneath that car, Don.
Yeah, he probably burned a piston. You know, the air got heavier. It's real cool out here, and he maybe didn't tune it up enough for that.
So into the interview area, Bruce Larson brings his own light.
Yeah, he's burning pure aluminum there. That makes a nice white fire. You better watch out if you're burning the paint off this world champion car.
Well, that's just a little oil, no harm, no big damage to the automobile. The Safety Safari snuffs it right out.
Boy, I'm sure Larson doesn't care. He's won it all, and he won this one right off the starting line. You know, his reaction times have not been good today, but on this particular run, he was ready for John Force because John Force was ready for him. And it was a really good race, but Larson, notice, pulls it out just a little bit. Not a big difference in the two cars. The type of a race that the fans really love.
And Steve is standing by with the funny car champ.
Well, an anxious moment down here, Don, Fred, as Bruce Larson, no sooner than he won the race, the car lit up underneath, lots of fire, lots of smoke. The Safety Safari, as always, right on hand to put it out. He is out of the car. He is okay. He is not only the Winston champion for '89, he's the Winston Finals winner as well. You are okay.
Yeah, no fire coming in there at all.
What do you think was going on there?
I don't know. I guess maybe a valve cover gasket blew out. It wasn't anything serious. We're happy. Now I think this is the 6th time that we've been able to say thanks to Century and thanks to Oldsmobiles. Thanks to my crew. Those guys are terrific.
So are you.
A fantastic year.
Indeed, for all of us. Bruce Larson, funny car winner who won here at the Winter Nationals. Bob Glidden also won at the Winter Nationals. If Gary Ormsby wins, all 3 will have repeated at Pomona Raceway.
We're waiting for a report on that.
I don't know what happened. I was up sideways on 2 wheels. I looked out the window and I saw McCullough and I looked back and I recovered and I hit it and I was over against the wall and off the wall, but I didn't see him and I just kept shooting. I don't know what happened.
Well, I looked at the car and I don't see a mark on it. Did you feel any collision with the wall?
Oh no, I never got the wall. Didn't hit the wall. It's just that I was sideways. Oh, I never hit walls.
You're right.
Oh, nice job. No, you didn't touch nothing. No, you didn't get the guardrail or anything.
Huh? You crossed those nuts.
No, you got it.
Heart pumped a little. Well, it's kind of getting exciting. No wall. No marks on this car. No walls, no marks. No walls, no marks. Don't hit walls, can't afford it. Come on, Tower, let's hear it. Let's make this exciting. Let's make this exciting, Tower, come on. Don't give me no wall. There ain't no more fucking time. How? How? That's ridiculous. Let's see it. I want to go down and see it right now.
What are they saying?
What are they saying? I hit the wall. I never touched the wall. Never went over nothing. No. Hey, we got a bitch here.
How did we call it?
How do we call it? Where?
Stand by. I'm with Linwood.
Well, great. Get Linwood. There ain't a mark on this hunt.
I've got John Force standing right next to me.
Not a chance. You see any marks on this car? Not none. This car didn't hit no wall. It didn't hit the wall.
No, it never did nothing.
They're saying never hit no wall. There ain't a mark on this thing.
What are they saying?
They're determined by a check of the race course is Ed McCullough. No way! Let me to the tower. Let me tell him.
No way!
Did not touch the wall. It is called that Force did, and the win goes to McCullough.
There ain't a mark on the car. He never touched there ain't a show me the mark. I watched it. Show me the mark.
Show us the mark.
There ain't a mark on the car. Never. Who in the hell? No, drag it right down the racetrack. No way. There ain't a mark. Show me the mark. Where'd it hit? Give me on the tower. I don't give a making these rules. Where'd it hit? I know when I hit the wall, I missed it by 2 feet. No way. Give me a ride down there. What do you got? What do you got? Give me a motorcycle. Just haul the car down there. Hey, somebody get on the phone and you tell them they want me out of this race. You show me a mark on my car. You tell them that right now. I ain't getting no more. I hear you. Let's go. Drag it right down there. Tell them it.